Hello, everyone. Welcome to 4 little-known ways to promote yourself. This is a presentation put on by Moxy Monitor. My name is Roger Schmitz, and I'm the CEO at Moxy. Our presenter today is Lou Abramowski. Lou has done social media projects for very small and very large companies and everything in between. He took the Jack Link's beef jerky Facebook presence from 0 to 1 million likes on a very small budget. He's worked on several startups all the way from founding through acquisition. One of Lou's current projects is a product called Evergreen, which automates posting on Facebook and Twitter. The format for today, we are going to have Lou give about a 25-minute presentation. We'll stop about halfway through that for questions, and then we'll have a Q&A session at the end as well. You can type in questions at any time during the presentation in the questions panel on the right side of your screen. So with that, I'm going to turn things over to Lou.
Thanks, Roger. Good morning, everybody. Or I suppose if you're in a different time zone on the East Coast, you might be heading into afternoon. Like Roger said, I've got a background in software and in social media marketing, and had a couple of fun things happen over the course of the last few years, including, as Roger mentioned, the help that I did with Facebook and Jack Links to get them over 1 million likes, and I think they're probably in the neighborhood of like 1.3 million likes. But in addition to that, I've built a handful of other communities built around a children's entertainment brand, just a community of ultimate frisbee players, some fun travel destinations, and the list goes on and on and on. And we're going to talk about a handful of the techniques that I used to get those done, or to accomplish those kind of great feats, to build those things on what amounted to pretty much a shoestring budget on all of those. You might think with Jack Link's beef jerky, for example, that it's pretty easy for them to just throw money at the problem. But I think most of the time we were only spending a few dollars a day, and the most we ever spent in a single day of advertising was $25 during that rise. And I'd say that that's typically my model, is really to go for just spending a couple dollars a day at most on any Facebook page, and then really use kind of growth hacking and growth tactics to grow the page, and then just use the paid media as a way to throw gas in the flames. So let's jump in. I want to tell a quick, brief story about kind of one of the things that inspired me to get into this, and it's an odd one because it doesn't seem like immediately that you could take away any sort of business lesson. But years and years ago, on my birthday, on December 17th, just as anybody who has a Facebook account has experienced, I had dozens, if not hundreds, of friends that I haven't heard from in years, or even in some cases more than a decade, wishing me happy birthday on Facebook. I don't think that's a very uncommon thing for anybody to experience. But on the next morning, on December 18th, I decided I wanted to see what would happen if I changed my Facebook birthday to December 18th, which was now the current day, just to see how many happy birthday messages I would get. And as it turned out, I still got over 100 happy birthday messages, and I think at the time I had around 800, 850 Facebook friends. So that was neat. And then on December 19th, I decided to do it again, and still I got dozens of happy birthday messages, and quite a handful of messages from people like, what's going on here? Well, after 3 days of this, I decided, well, let me see what I can do to do this for a very long time. Let me change my birthday to the current day every single day until I don't get any more happy birthday messages. And much to my surprise, that went on for over 100 days. Now, the experience was kind of fun, and it was a fun little social experiment, but a couple interesting things happened along the way. One, I got a handful of people were wishing me happy birthday about 2 weeks in, very sincerely, that had been wishing me happy birthday, that had already previously wished me a happy birthday sincerely. And the takeaway that I had from that was that I just need to remember that when people see things on Facebook, and even if they interact with them and have even some sort of positive experience with it, it doesn't necessarily mean that weeks from now or months from now that they're going to remember that they had that experience. The second thing, and this one's kind of funny, is I did get a handful of people kind of threatening to not be my friend anymore, and I think I lost a handful of Facebook friends over it. I don't think I lost any friends in real life, but a handful of people were just like, "Hey, stop this! I'm tired of seeing your name on my friend's birthday list." But altogether, the big marketing lesson I learned from this was that most people use this conventional wisdom that when they post things on Facebook, that they shouldn't be posting too frequently because they're going to annoy their fans or they're going to annoy their customers. Well, what I learned from that was that when you have a big group of people saying that they're annoyed with your content, it's typically not a product of them annoyed with the frequency. It's almost always indicative of the quality of the content. Meaning, here I was changing my birthday to the current day every single day, and knowing that birthday messages are kind of one of the biggest pieces of Facebook, and one of the most engaging pieces of content, I knew that because that was such an engaging piece of content, doing it every single day, there were almost always people reaching out to wish me a happy birthday. Now, I wouldn't necessarily recommend somebody take, a really exciting, good piece of content and post it every single day, but the lesson is that if it's good enough, it's certainly not, it should not be looked at as a piece of disposable content the way that most people look at social media content. I think most people think of it as it should be ephemeral, and it should be of the type that is single serving and single use. But in reality, social media very much is like other media. Anybody who's watched sports in the last 5 years has seen the Jake from State Farm commercial on TV, every single commercial break on every single sports broadcast. And if you go to the Twitter account for Jake from State Farm right now, what you'll find is that there's tons and tons of tweets still people, "Hey, this commercial never gets old. I love this commercial." And what's fascinating about that is they're selling probably the most boring product on the marketplace. They're selling insurance, and yet people still love that commercial so much. And it's something that I tell people over and over as they think about their social media content strategy, that you should really be thinking about introducing and including a big piece of your content as content that will last for a long time and content that you can reuse over and over. So with that, I want to talk about these couple of other tactics that I've used over and over in many, many different verticals, and that I think could be really useful for you. So the first one is enable tagging. So you might have seen this, and this was an idea that I first saw with IKEA many, many years ago. I want to say it was right about the month that Facebook pages launched. And they posted a room at one of their showrooms with a bunch of different IKEA furniture in it, and they asked all of their fans to tag themselves in the photo. And the entry to a contest to win the room and all of the furniture in it was by tagging themselves in the photo. And what they did is they ended up branding the entire image with IKEA branding and obviously their product assortment. And with that, they allowed a handful of people to enter this contest and win all of this IKEA furniture. Well, the interesting thing about that is once somebody's tagged in a photo, it becomes a part of their photo albums. And if they don't untag themselves, it kind of becomes a permanent fixture among their individual personal Facebook profiles. So what's cool about that is there's this opportunity to actually put what kind of looks like an ad inside of your fans' Facebook photo albums. And you can use this in lots and lots of different ways. I mentioned a children's entertainer before. One of the things that we did with her page was we took a bunch of pictures of her face, just expressing a bunch of different emotions, and on Friday every single week, we posted a grid of a bunch of different facial expressions for her, and we asked people to tag themselves in the photo where to describe how their day was going. And what we did is made sure that that photo included a bunch of branding and information about how to find the character online and do some, connect, whether it was liking the Facebook page or visiting the website or whatever. The idea here was that ordinarily when you're publishing on your Facebook page, you're only going to be able to reach the people who are already liking your page. Well, the interesting thing here is that by making sure that you have a tag with or enable tagging for somebody who sees that post in their newsfeed, there's an opportunity for you to become a permanent fixture in their Facebook album. And as long as you brand it the right way, that's an opportunity for you now to reach the friends of the fans that you've already earned. So that's really neat. And the way you'll want to do that is just go into your Facebook settings, and you'll notice on the left-hand side there's a setting for tagging and for photos. Just dig through it, and while you're in there, you may want to just kind of review the tag, all the different Facebook settings, and determine whether or not it's kind of optimized for your business or your brand. But that's one thing I really encourage people to do, is find a way to take an image that people may want to tag themselves in it, whether it's contest driven, whether it's just personal expressions driven, like with the facial expressions. And sometimes it's just like a really funny meme or joke where you're asking people to say, hey, this is really me. And find an image that you think your potential fans and people who might be attracted to that image would tag themselves in, and be interested in your brand if they saw one of their friends were tagged in it. So the second tactic is a little bit more let's say leading edge, and maybe something a little bit more esoteric. But I encourage people to create events. And one of the reasons I tell people that is because events are still one of these things that Facebook, I think, gives a lot of extra distribution to, by way of showing everybody's friends who has RSVP'd to which events. And one of the neat things about creating an event by or with your Facebook page is that you can also use and run ads and use some of the other tools related to events that you can't do using your personal profile on Facebook. So, we're not necessarily here to talk about paid media, which I think is always a critical piece of any social media strategy. But what I will say is that there are other things with creating events on Facebook that make this a really cool tactic. So most notably is once somebody's been invited to an event, until they RSVP that no, they're not going, they get all of the updates via a Facebook notification. So that little red globe in Facebook illuminates every time there's an update. Those updates include changes to the name of the event, changes to the time of the event, the description, the location, or even just posts on the Facebook event wall by the event's creator. So that's something to really keep in mind as you're thinking about any sort of campaign that you might have, creating an event around that. And even if, and when I use the term event, I'm talking about specifically a Facebook event. Now, this Facebook event, does not have to represent an event in reality. It can represent a virtual event. So that can be something like, last Monday, I think it was International Happiness Awareness Day or International Happiness Day. And, those are the types of kind of virtual events that you have an opportunity to invite a bunch of people to, and use it as a way to kind of keep in the front of people's minds, and make sure that you've got another channel to speak to them, and maybe even do some sort of promotion. You know, I also use them for webinars. So going out and saying, hey, there's this event on this day and this time, and say, invite as many people as you can, encourage people to invite their friends, and as that list of invitees grows, your list of people that you can market to grows as well. And it's a really super effective way for you to, again, not only reach the people that have already liked your page or you've already connected with, but empower those people who have already connected with you to reach out to their friends, and then create some sort of channel to speak to them. Whether that's, again, posting on the event wall, updating the event details, or even potentially paying for advertising to expand the reach or target a particular area. And get creative with it. Like I said, this could certainly represent an event in reality, but there's clearly opportunity for you to be creative and find a way to create a virtual event where, even if that's a membership sale, right? So if you've got like a 2-week campaign that you say your membership stuff is on sale, that's a really good way to say, I'm going to invite a bunch of people, say that my product is 20% off for the next 2 weeks, and there's this virtual event on Facebook that people can be invited to. So this next one is a new one that I just discovered that I haven't seen.
Lou, if I could break in here for just a second.
Sure.
We're about halfway through the presentation here, and we've got a question here. If you could handle this one right now. How might an athlete use an event to promote their participation, like in an upcoming race?
Yeah, so I think that's one of the cases where, the real event can reflect, can be reflected in a Facebook event, right? Where you've got all of the details, and you can put up a Facebook event that shares all of those details, and you start inviting your fans, your friends, your family, colleagues, or other people that might be interested in those in that particular race, right? So that's an interesting one, that I think on the surface could be very straightforward, but there might be other opportunities too, where if you're the type of athlete who does have fans, and fans are interested in kind of meet and greets, maybe there's an opportunity for you to set up a secondary event where after the race you're signing autographs, you're taking pictures, you're selling some of your gear that you might be sponsoring, and set up a secondary event for after the race where you've got the detailed location, you've got people there, you've got other promoters there, or maybe you partner with a handful of other athletes, and you enable 4 or 5 of them to all get together in one particular area where you can do a meet and greet, signing photos, and things like that.
Okay, just to follow up on that, how might that work if it was like an out-of-town race where many of the fans might not attend, but they still want to support the athlete, with well wishes online and things like that?
Sure, and I think that's a great question, where I think you can then turn the actual event into something a little bit more virtual, where maybe there is information in real time being posted about the event on a Twitter, maybe on the race's website, maybe on Facebook, maybe there's some live web broadcast of the event, and that's an opportunity for you to post a virtual event where people can RSVP saying, yes, I'm going to be, I won't be there live in attendance, but I will be watching Twitter on my phone while I'm somewhere else, or I will be at my desktop that afternoon for that race and watching the results. In those event descriptions, there's opportunity for you to say, hey, if you're supporting me or supporting this race, I'd really love you to tweet out about this or post on your Facebook page, include this hashtag, include this image. send people to this particular link to watch or to support the race in another way. You can maybe donate or, buy some gear around it, and here's a link. I think there's about 7 or 8 different ways that you can encourage people to participate and support the event, even from a distance, given that this is the digital age, and it seems like more and more we've got real-time information being published on the internet for events that we can't attend in person.
All right, great. Just a reminder to everyone, if you have questions, you can type them in on the right side of your screen, and we'll take some more questions at the end of the presentation in about 10 minutes or so.
Perfect. So this next, like I mentioned, this next tactic is something that I just discovered last week, and I've been using it with a great deal of success. And for anybody that's sitting at their desktop right now, one of the fascinating things about Facebook pages that I haven't seen written about at all yet is that if you go through all of your Facebook posts and you notice that there's a handful of people liking the status or the image or the video or whatever post you have, you can click on the names of the people that are liking, and it'll generally say like Roger Schmitz and 7 other people like this photo. If you click on that little link right there, it'll show you the full list of all of the people who have liked that post, and it'll also show you their status of connected with that page. So that's neat, to be able to see, let's say 8 people have liked your post, and to see that 6 of them have already liked your page. What's interesting is Facebook also gives you a single opportunity to invite that person to like your page. So what does that mean? One, you have access to seeing who is liking your content, but who hasn't subscribed and isn't likely to see that content in their newsfeed. And you might be asking yourself, well, how would somebody like a post on my Facebook page if they haven't already liked it? Well, there's a lot of ways, but I think most of the time what ends up happening is every time there's a like, a comment, or a share on a post or a photo, that creates a story for that person who liked, commented, and shared that reaches their friends. So again, this is kind of reiterating what we've talked about. This is an opportunity for you to reach friends of your fans, and by pushing out content, every time you publish a piece of content, there's an opportunity for somebody to like, comment, and share on it. And every time somebody likes, comments, or shares on a post, their friends are more likely to see that post in their own newsfeed, in their ticker, because their friends commented, shared, liked, reacted to that post. And with that, that could show up in their newsfeed. And I think we've all seen one of those posts where it's from a page that we haven't necessarily liked ourselves, but our friend shared it or commented or liked or reacted. And now you as a page owner can look at that content and look to see who additionally has liked that content or reacted to it, and go through and invite those people one by one. Now, one thing I have noticed is this feature is not available on mobile. It's only available on desktop, so I encourage everybody to just go through and look at all the content that they posted on their Facebook page, click on the likes of those individual posts, and go through and see if there are people who have not yet liked your page, and invite them to like your page. I will add one other little caveat to that, is that the invitation will come from you individually, so it won't come from your brand. So as an example, if Roger were to do this on the Moxy Monitor page, he would go through, and if he found some name of somebody who's liked one of their posts and invited them to like the page, it wouldn't say Moxy Monitor has invited you to like their page. It would instead say Roger has invited you to like your page. So for those of you who are in kind of brand management situations where maybe you don't necessarily want your name to be associated with that invitation, you may just want to be careful and think about a different way to do that. But for those of you who are looking for people who are clearly already finding your content interesting, this is a really good way to invite them and get them connected to your page. Really, really powerful tactic and a really, really high conversion rate from what we've found so far by doing this. And it is a little bit more of a manual effort, but we've been finding that it's a very powerful one that only takes a couple minutes a day. So the last thing that I want to talk about is something that I touched on with my birthday's social experiment, and that's the importance of posting very, very frequently. And I know conventional wisdom today says that you should not be posting too frequently for fear of annoying your customers. But going back to what I said earlier, if you're annoying your customers, it's a product of the quality of your content, not the frequency. So the idea is to find high quality content and then post that as often as you can. So what I mean by as often as you can is that for Facebook, you've got about an hour half-life for content. That means that after 1 hour, 50% of the entire audience who will ever see that post have seen it, and after 4 hours, over 90% of the entire audience who will ever see that post have seen it. There's some exceptions for things that go ridiculously viral, but for the most part, if you post at 8 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, by noon, that post has been seen by everybody who may ever see it. And you can post again at noon without fear that you're really competing with the potential viewership of that other post. So keep that in mind, that on Facebook, posting every 4 hours, you aren't cannibalizing your audience by doing that. You're really trying to maximize the amount of people who view your post every single week. And one other thing I'll mention on that is that, Facebook reach is obviously down. We've got some people whose pages are only reaching about 5% of their audience every time they post. So think about when you post something that if I'm only reaching 5% of the audience right now, if I post 12 hours from now, what's the likelihood that that same 5% is going to see that exact same post that I made? And that's not an endorsement to share the exact same content 12 hours later, but it is an endorsement that if content does really, really well for you at 8 a.m. on a Wednesday morning, that's content that, as long as it isn't about current events, that you should think about recycling that and using it again a few weeks from now or a couple months from now. And I'll also add that Twitter is the same way, except Twitter has a much shorter shelf life. Some people have estimated that Twitter shelf life is around 8 or 9 minutes, meaning that after about a half hour, almost everybody who will ever see that tweet has already seen it. And you can get away with posting about every half hour on Twitter as long as your content is good without cannibalizing the viewership, and without worry that by posting again a half hour later that your new content is competing with the content that you just posted 8 hours ago, or 30 minutes ago. So that's those are the big 4 tactics. And just to review, I encourage everybody to enable tagging. So allow your fans to tag themselves in your photos or even in the comments on your Facebook pages. 2, start using Facebook events, whether it's for real events, whether it's for virtual events, and try to be creative to get people to RSVP to support you in a real event or whatever that case might be. 3, go through all the people who have liked individual posts on your Facebook page and see which ones have not yet liked your Facebook page and invite them to like your page. And then the last one, feel free to post every 4 hours on Facebook and every half hour on Twitter without concern that your content is competing against each other or you're cannibalizing views. So with that, I'll hand it back to Roger to see if we've got some questions from the audience.
All right, thanks, Lou, for that great information. We've got a couple of questions here, and if people want to submit some more questions, you can type them in the question tab on the right. The first question here: If an athlete is looking for sponsorship by a brand, how should they present themselves to show that their social media presence is valuable? Should they use the number of followers or some other metrics?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and a question that I get quite a bit. And I'd say that um, I don't know that there's any perfectly right way to do it, but what I will say is that what you don't want to show them is that you have no fans on your Facebook page, no fans on your Twitter, no fans on your social media. And if you do have fans and kind of a decent following, that your statuses and your posts are completely dormant. It's really critical that when you approach those conversations, that it looks like you're putting in a really big effort. And I'll tell you that kind of going back to my last tactic and posting very frequently. Posting very frequently is the single easiest way for you to get your reach numbers up. And those reach numbers, you may have seen this as you type in the search in Facebook, whatever you're typing for. There will be a number underneath some of the results that say this many people are talking about this. And by posting, every 4 hours on Facebook, that's a really good way to, jump up that number. And that potentially could also be a really good number to share with a potential sponsor. So even though followers is important and number of likes per post is important, if you type in the Facebook search and notice under, if you're searching for your name or your event or your brand, and there's people talking about this number in the search results, that's significantly higher than the number of people that even like your Facebook page, that can be a very powerful and influential number to have those conversations with sponsors.
All right, great, thank you. Another question here, how often can you use events on Facebook?
Wow, I've never gotten that question before. I think that's a great one, and I'll tell you, I don't know that there's any limit. And I'll tell you one of the interesting things that happens with that is, so I'm from Minnesota, and last year some guy in Minnesota created a Facebook event that was called something along the lines of fun and free things to do in Minnesota over the summer. And by like mid-June, like 1.5 million people had RSVP'd to this thing or had been invited to this thing. And there's only about 5 million people in Minnesota total. And the cool thing that happens with Facebook events is once you've RSVP'd, it shows up during that event on your Facebook homepage saying this event is going on right now. So that's one thing to think about as you are using these virtual or real events, that if during the event you span multiple days or multiple weeks, or even in this particular case multiple months, it's a good way to have like a permanent fixture on somebody's Facebook homepage. And getting back to the question, you may want to think about that so that if you are using multiple events kind of along the same time, that maybe having them overlap time-wise isn't necessarily the best way to do it. If you're concerned that on Facebook's homepage and showing the events that you're attending, your brand might be listed 7 times there, because that might start feeling a little bit like spam to people, and that's something that you might, from a brand trustworthiness, just be a little bit careful about. But I'm not aware of any sort of limit to the number of events that you can have. I've certainly helped brands that do events literally multiple times over every single weekend spanning many months. That's been pretty successful. So I wouldn't be too worried about using events too much. My only concern would be people maybe using events that span the exact same time too much during a particular time when the event is going on.
Okay, here's one from me. Can you talk a little bit about how Evergreen helps you to post more frequently?
Yeah, so I think a lot of people think about or when I give the advice that people should be posting up to 6 times a day on Facebook, they're just completely overwhelmed. They say, well, first of all, I don't have that much content. I can't be posting 6 times a day. I can't sit down every 4 hours and compose a brand new update. And secondly, I think that if people want to try to schedule out that content and sit down on a Sunday afternoon and schedule out 6 posts a day for the next week, they get tired of kind of pointing and clicking and picking a date and a time that's being posted. Well, years ago I wrote some software for myself that was doing this because I was running about 40 pages for myself. And like I mentioned, some are community driven, some are brand driven, some are entertainment driven, and I just got tired of pointing and clicking all day and picking a date and time, and wrote some software that automates it. So Evergreen is a tool that I built a year ago for myself, but have since turned it into a company, and it is a tool that takes images and videos out of a Dropbox folder and automatically randomly picks one of them to post on your Facebook page or your Twitter account when you're not actively doing it yourself. So here's what that means. One is this is a tool not for scheduling. This is a tool for taking a bunch of content that can be shared any time of day, night, weekday, weekend, holiday, summer, winter, fall, whatever. And if you're not actively posting on your Facebook page or Twitter, Evergreen will take over. And I think this is a tool that is especially helpful for people who don't have the time to be posting as often and as frequently as they need to be posting on their Facebook page, and instead, make sure that their Facebook page days and days go by without having a new post on it because you fired your social media manager for retweeting Justin Bieber, you completely forgot because that was the bachelor party that you went to with your buddies over the weekend, or you simply just don't have anything new to post. Evergreen is a tool that you fill up a Dropbox folder with a bunch of images and videos, like I said, that are of the type that not only can be shared any time of day, any time of week, month, year, but also can be reposted a few times over the course of the next couple years. So not only is it not related to current events, it also has an expiration date several years in the future, so that you can reshare that maybe every couple months. And that's a tool that now I use on all of my Facebook pages and with a bunch of customers that are with brands kind of bigger or smaller, some nonprofits, some solopreneurs, some agencies are using us to save a bunch of time and to make sure that hours or days or weeks don't go by without a Facebook post or a tweet on Twitter. So that's generally how I've seen it used, and with some of my customers. I'll also add that one of the interesting things that happens when you start posting more frequently is you start to really understand what's resonating with your audience. Whereas, people that are kind of the typical mindset that I'm going to post like 2 or 3 times a week on Facebook, you don't have enough data to really, really decide what content works well and doesn't. And on top of everything else, one of the ways that some of our customers are using Evergreen is by saying, we're going to take that really good content and use it inside of our advertising or inside of our marketing, because we saw that by sharing it on Facebook, lots of people liked it, some people commented and reshared, and that we know that content is really resonating well with people. Whereas I think the traditional way of putting marketing materials and advertising together is just throw a dart at the dartboard in the dark and hoping that it hits the bullseye. Well, Evergreen is a way to start publishing way more frequently and then take that data for how people are responding to all of that content that you're posting and better understand what's really, really resonating so that you can use it not only in your marketing materials, but also to determine what kind of content you're going to share in the future to attract more fans and more customers.
All right. Well, thanks so much, Lou. Our time is up here. We appreciate you sharing this great information with us.
Thanks a lot. It was a pleasure, Roger.
All right, and we'll get a recording of this sent out to all the attendees. So you should be seeing that in the next couple of days. Thanks a lot for attending, everyone.